Good evening, folks. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'd like to start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. At this time, we'd like to call upon Mr. Paul Moustakis to sing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you.
Let's go Rangers. All right, real quickly before we get going, I just want to make one little, well, let me do roll call first, and then I'll make a little statement about the tree in town. Town clerk, please, roll call.
Councilwoman Albrecht.
Here.
Councilman Mazzella.
Here.
Councilman O'Hanlon.
Here.
Councilman Reifenberg.
Here?
Supervisor Delvecchio.
Here,
Town Attorney Emily Swenson. Here. All present.
thank you. All right, real quickly, so last week we had our tree at the mill site, the big one that we decorate for Christmas, was hit by a car, and it had what they call a whiplash shatter of the tree. So the tree is probably damaged to not being able to go any further, and we probably have to replace the tree. It's about a 20-footer and a little difficult to replace. Not an easy thing to just, take it out and plant something new. So, but we are aware of it, and we want to thank everybody who called us all week long to let us know that the tree was hit. We understand it was hit, and we're taking care of it. It's going to take a little bit of time because we have to do it correctly. But thank you very much, and hopefully no one was seriously injured. Adoption of the agenda as is, or any amendments to?
I proposed 14A. It was just it's not supposed to be there, so I'm just pulling 14A, the future local law regulating cannabis, off the agenda.
I would also like to make an amendment, though, to add just a old business discussion item. We can call it 14C, if you will. It's the ARPA funds. I just want to, Mary and I have been working on some stuff, but I want to talk about what we want to talk about next meeting.
So moved.
Second? Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I make a motion that we adopt the agenda as amended.
Do I hear a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I am in receipt of the affidavit posting pertaining to the public hearing, resolution commencing the local law adopting process for proposed local law B of 2023, a local law amending Chapter 86 taxation of the Town of Pleasant Valley Code to add new Article 6 titled Tax Exemption for Qualified Volunteer Firefighters and Ambulance Workers. I have that. You're in receipt and an acceptance of the minutes.
So I'll make a motion to open the public hearing
Oh, I'm
to
sorry.
discuss the proposed law, local law B of 2023.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, anybody would like to say a few words, or anyone has any comments on the local law at all? This is the tax exemption for qualified volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. Anyone, any comments on it?
I'd like to just, if nobody from the public, just say that I think it's great that we're following the county's lead and giving them something for all the service they do for the town. So
I second that.
I don't think anybody's against this.
Not hearing any further comment, I move we close the meeting to the public.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to see an acceptance of the minutes of the 8A regular town board meeting on April 17th, 2023, and 8B special town board meeting on April 19th, 23.
I make a motion to accept both of those.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All official correspondence are in file in the clerk's office. Tonight we have presentations, probably part 2 of CPL's presentation update for 1903 Route 44 to our town board. Greg Ballmer.
Okay, let me wake my computer up here. So, Greg Bowling with CPL. Thanks for having me again tonight. Just wanted to go over a few things and kind of rehash some of the stuff that we discussed last week. I thought I'd start out with just showing where the 1903 Route 44, the new town hall location. The nice thing about this building is the rear part of the building is at grade to the second floor, and the front part of the building is at grade to the first floor. So it does provide for convenient handicap access to both floors without having to take the elevator or take steps, which are being provided, but simply if you're intending to go to the first floor, you park in the front, you go to the first floor, it's fully handicap accessible. There's about 40 to 45 parking spaces in the front, and there's about 30 to 35 parking spaces in the rear. And during high demand times, you could have overflow parking along the curb on both the east side and the west side, which would get you up to about 95 to 100 spaces total. So I wanted to start with that because when we were talking last week, we had talked quite a bit about the upstairs left corner of the building and having that as a community room. And I guess I really kind of got a little bit off on that, but that area could be a community room for after hours use. It doesn't work very well for a community room during the business hours because the business offices and parking for visitors is going to be in the 25 to 30 vehicle range. So all of the spaces on the upstairs would be basically taken up by people that are there for the office or for visiting the business offices. So having something else going on at the same time would be difficult to accommodate. Also, the upstairs bathrooms are basically designed and sized for the office space and meeting rooms, but not for a large community gathering. The large community gathering bathrooms are downstairs, and we'll get to that. I did lay that out just so that it was a little better than just calling it a training room. I did show how it could be laid out as a training room with kind of a horseshoe grouping of tables. You could have a large screen at the front of the room or to the east wall, and then to the west wall you have like a coffee break area where you basically just have a long countertop. There's a sink shown in the far corner to where you could have coffee services. If you've got a meeting going on, you could bring in danishes, etc. So that room could be used by the community with no issues at night. So in the evening hours when the offices are closed, you don't have the office staff there. It would allow for up to, well, you could have other parking downstairs, but the room itself would be sized for a maximum of 49 people, but you could conveniently park about 30 vehicles up there for access to a meeting after hours. They would come in that west entrance, go to the room, they would have access to the bathrooms, they would have access if they want to make coffee or whatnot. They would bring in their own supplies, materials. And then, let's see. So that was the main thing. I just kind of wanted to go over what our thinking was. And a lot of these things the committee had gone over, but at the last meeting, I wasn't prepared to rehash those things. And so when asked the question, I didn't respond quickly. So I thought it was best to show this. We also made some changes. We moved the bookkeeper's office over to closer to the kitchen. We changed the one room there, which has no windows, to basically being like a future flex space for whatever the town might want to have that be. And then we combined the maintenance staff room with the storage room. Since the maintenance staff is typically charged with bringing things in and out of storage, as well as responsible for some of the things that are in storage, we changed that to just one big room so that they could have a couple of desks in there as far as maintenance staff, but then also the storage of boxes and other materials that the town needs to store could be in that room. If there was a security issue or if there was a need, a wall could be put there in the door if you want to keep the storage area separate from the maintenance staff, but still kind of have the same setup where somebody could bring something in that west entrance, go straight back into the room and provide that storage. We didn't really talk about it too much, but on both the east entrance and the west entrance, we're providing a vestibule, which is basically code compliance for energy savings, so that somebody basically comes in to the vestibule area and then opens up the second set of doors to try to keep the heat in the building during the winter time. And that's common to both sides of the building. We did look at putting a door in the hallway, but because of the need for having the two egress points out of the building, we were a little concerned having a door that would shut people off from one end of the building or from one exit to another. But, you know, I think for the most part, in talking with the supervisor and talking with other members of the board, all of the offices generally lock their doors at night anyways. So if somebody is coming in for a meeting and in the training room, all of the doors that would provide access to any of the offices would be locked. So the only thing they would really have access to would be the waiting area room. So it's not, and then the door downstairs could be locked in the evening so that they wouldn't have access to the downstairs. And the Lulu is typically an elevator that's operated by a key, so it would just be left locked at night, and then during the day when there's need for that, you would put the key in there to unlock it. Going to the first floor, some of the changes that we made in response to some of the comments last week, on the second floor, just real quick, I did make a change. There was a center hallway or a center closet here. Changed this to basically being a server closet, so any of the computer equipment and server information that would need to be as part of the IT support would be in this front area, and then this back area would basically be a utility closet with the mop sink next to the restrooms. On the downstairs area, we went ahead, we listened to what the town said regarding the need or the desire for a commercial kitchen. This space back in here we had as one big storage area. So it really lent itself to basically taking this space over here on this west side and creating a commercial kitchen. That commercial kitchen would have the required 3-bay sinks, a commercial refrigerator, a prep sink, a hand wash sink. It would have a range hood, and then also a stainless steel countertop with a pass-through window that could be used for providing service out of that kitchen as part of a community event. You'd still have this coffee nook for meetings, where if you're not necessarily wanting people to use the commercial kitchen, if they want to have a meeting in here, they could have the public or the town board or planning board or whoever could have a meeting in here, and if they wanted to have coffee or something, they could have coffee set up in this small nook area. They would have direct access to the bathrooms here, and again, there's more bathrooms on the lower level than there are on the upper level, so they would have direct access to the bathrooms. The intent would be this area here would be locked off at night so that people would not have access to the upstairs. This corridor would just basically be locked to where the people could not get into the access to the upstairs. But they would have full access to proper egress from the room. And then the same thing, the intent, which we really didn't go over too much last time, the intent would be is if you're having a town board meeting, the door over here by the court would be locked, the door going into the court offices would be locked. This actually here is a firewall, so these doors need to be maintained closed anyway, so it would be best to have them locked after hours, so that if somebody's having a meeting in the community room, they would not have access to any of the court facilities. Vice versa, you'd lock this door, and lock this door, and when court's in session, anyone that's here for court would have access to the bathrooms, but would not have access to the community room. And again, lock the kitchen and not have access to that. We also provided kind of a layout just to show how this could be set up for a dining room. If you wanted to have the community room used to serve meals, you could set up, and this would be for about 60 people. Throw in a few more chairs, you could probably get up to 75 people in there. And then this here is a storage room. It calls it out on the other drawing. A storage room where you'd basically store all of these tables when they're not being used. They would be conveniently stored here. And then the chairs that you don't need for this setup could conveniently be stored in this storage room. And then this was, like I said, was changed to a server room. This is your mechanical room where your water service comes in. So we try to take all of that into account. And again, it really comes down to being able to conveniently provide for parking, as well as having that separation between office business services and community services, so that if somebody is here for a community meeting during the day, they would have access to this lower level directly from the front door. They would park in the front of the building. It wouldn't be a disruption to the upstairs area, any of the business offices, nor would the business offices conflict with the community room use on the lower floor. So that was kind of how I tried to come back with this to the board to talk about some of the things that were brought up at the last meeting. The projected cost changed a little bit to account for the addition of the commercial kitchen. We were not aware, or we didn't anticipate or understand that the town was looking for a commercial kitchen. It may have just simply been a little bit of a misunderstanding with the fact that when you bring in a stove in a commercial aspect, it immediately causes it to be considered a commercial kitchen. Also, anytime you're providing for meals to the public, it has to be a commercial kitchen. So while over the years, that has been has not been adhered to. The health department had, in more recent years, has become very strict with that. And if you are providing meals to the public, it does have to be through a commercial kitchen. And a commercial kitchen requires fire suppression system over the stove. And it does require a 3-bay sink for the washing of the dishes. It also requires a separate hand sink, and in some cases, separate mop sink, but we have the mop sink located over here in this utility janitor's room, so we didn't add another mop sink to the kitchen. So that pretty much covers the layout, and again, cost estimate is about, the cost of the building is about $6 million. When you tack on the, that would be direct construction costs. When you tack on the general conditions, which is your bonding, your mobilization, demobilization, your construction trailers, all of that type of stuff, general conditions, the design contingencies, which are generally just considered to be contingencies for things that come up in design. And then construction contingencies would be contingencies for things that come up during construction or things that just come up as a matter of a increase in cost in the bid that was not anticipated during design. So it's not only just contingencies from the standpoint of changes in scope, but also just changes in cost estimates. So it's basically a built-in buffer, if you want to call it. And then for design costs is the next item. So it basically adds up to about $8.5 million. So I don't know if the board has any questions and I did, not that it's great, but we do have, I guess I didn't get it on here. I thought I brought a photo of, we have a similar training room setup that we have there, which works quite well for whether or not you're doing training that applies to all of your staff. The only one I can think of that comes to mind is your sexual harassment training or other trainings like that that are required to be attended by all staff. You have a TV or projector that you could have in that room, that everybody could sit in that room comfortably and attend such a meeting. Same thing with training that is applicable to the highway department. They could have some of their training here as well. That's generally required on an annual basis. Any questions?
I mean, I thank you for making all the changes that we've asked for. This is a lot between this and I'm sure we have to talk about, the finance committee should talk about how we anticipate to fund this venture. Next, that would be the next move, right, for us?
Yeah. That'd be the next step. There's also a breakdown of every little nut and bolt that I believe, did you send that already?
No, the breakdown that we got from the contractor, we hired a construction admin firm to provide us with the cost breakdown for the project. And the way that it's broken down, it's by square foot, so it's very difficult to follow from the standpoint of it's not broken out by room. It's broken out by square footage, by ceiling, by floor, by walls, and so it gets to the number, but it's not very easy to follow. And at this point, what we're really also trying to emphasize is it's a budget. As I said the last time, it's basically giving the town an upset limit so that the town has the ability to understand where they are and whether or not this is something that they want to move forward with. Basically, once, and Emily can jump in if she'd like, but once the town approves the bond resolution, it doesn't mean that that's what you borrow. You only borrow once the project goes out to bid or during design the process you borrow to pay design fees, but you don't borrow for the big nut, the construction of the building until it goes out to bid.
You have some questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for taking the time today during the afternoon. Greg and I spoke on the phone, and we discussed some of the doors and making it accessible after hours. Just a couple questions. I don't have the actual number. How many square foot is the entire building?
The entire building is about 18,000 square feet.
Okay, and with the 8.5, I mean, I guess I could do it. Do you know off the top of your head the price per square foot?
So the price per square foot for the basic construction is about $300 per square foot. The total price per square foot's around $500 per square foot, which is what we're seeing out there, unfortunately. I mean, I think when I came to the board a couple years ago talking about the bathrooms, if anybody goes down Spackenkill Road, the bathroom facility that's right there at the Spackenkill High School football, that was a $500,000 building, and that's just bathrooms. It's yeah.
And then you supplied us with a document a while ago that kind of listed all the construction and kind of your estimates back then of everything. You talked about energy efficient. Is this building going to meet all New York State Energy Code? Because I know, like, for example, when we did the library, we really banked on the fact that it was a bigger facility, but it was going to be very energy efficient. So I know the empty space and how large the building is, I think about cost of heating and cooling and all that stuff. So are like the outside walls going to meet energy code, or is the ceiling going to meet energy code?
We would probably have to do some additional insulation to meet energy code on the ceiling. The walls themselves are CMU block walls with 4-inch interior wood frame structure with insulation. So it does meet the energy code requirements, the current energy code requirements for the shell of the building, or the exterior shell. All the windows would be replaced with high efficiency windows. That includes the upstairs and the downstairs. That's figured into the budget. We had talked about some of the windows on the downstairs and had talked to the construction management company. What is most cost effective is probably just standard windows with a bullet resistant film, which provides for some additional security for that downstairs, because you've got those big windows on the downstairs area. We had talked about having the light into the main community room, but either putting in like your square block, which would provide for an opaque, but it just provides you with the light, but not something that somebody can see through.
And then the ceiling, the insulation, is that included already
Yes.
in the design? Okay.
Yep,
Awesome.
yep, that's included in the estimate, and like I say, it would have to be additional insulation to provide for the ceiling, or for the roof.
Okay. And then the metal roof, I know we talked about that. How much of a savings would it take off the 8.5 if we got just a
The
regular?
metal
shingle
roof was probably about $200,000 to $300,000 savings.
Okay. That's all I got. Thank you.
Anyone else? Greg, thank you very much. Appreciate all the extra work.
Thank you, no problem.
Okay. By request, we were asked to ask New York Transco for an update, and they're with us tonight. What we're going to do is we're going to let them present where they are and what's going on. If anyone has any questions immediately after, we will have the microphone here so they can respond, so we can go back and forth.
That'd be great.
and We can go like that. This way it's on the recording.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for having us back again. We appreciate the opportunity to give you an update on the New York Energy Solution Project. My name is Shannon Bax-Savanas with New York Transco, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Court Canfield. Court is the construction director for Transco and is managing all of the construction for this particular project. So we're going to get into some background, just reminders for folks that maybe weren't here from past meetings, just on who we are and the purpose of the project. Then we'll give you some details on where we're at for construction here in Pleasant Valley. So New York Transco is based out of Hudson, New York. We are a business solely focused on improving the bulk electric transmission network in New York, which is the backbone for the electrical delivery system in the state. That system really hasn't been upgraded in about 40 years, so there are a number of projects across the state of New York that are being built or developed as we speak, and there are 3 right now that New York Transco is advancing for the purposes of delivering clean energy, which is the focus of our company in upgrading the system. All of the projects that we're going to talk about, not only will they deliver clean energy to benefit residents locally, but they'll also provide for a more reliable and resilient system now and into the future. So the projects that we are constructing, which if you look at this map, I know it's kind of probably small if you're in the back of the room, there are 4 projects on this map. New York Transco is constructing 3 of the 4. All of these projects work together on this particular interface of the electric transmission network to relieve congestion on the system. So you can think of it like a highway with lots of cars on the road and congestion and traffic, and energy can't flow efficiently and effectively to where it needs to go for consumers. So our projects, all of these 4, in addition to one being built by the New York Power Authority, will upgrade the existing transmission network and help relieve congestion on the system to deliver clean energy from upstate resources to customers throughout the Hudson Valley and beyond. So these projects went through a competitive solicitation that was run by the New York Independent System Operator, and ultimately we went through permitting with the New York Public Service Commission as well as a number of other entities and received our permits in 2021 to start constructing the New York Energy Solution, and we began that process of constructing in the spring of 2021. And here you can see on the left-hand side, kind of small, a map of the New York Energy Solution, which is a 55-mile transmission line and station project where we're replacing aging assets in an existing utility-owned transmission corridor, as well as upgrading and building new substations along that 55-mile route. So this runs from Schodack and terminates down here in Pleasant Valley. We've been constructing, as I said, since the spring of 2021. I'm proud to say we are close to wrapping up that construction. We anticipate having this completed this summer. Our in-service date, our mandated in-service date was the end of this year, end of year 2023. We're going to do quite a bit better than that by hitting this summer's deadline. So you're going to see a lot less activity here in Pleasant Valley. So in Pleasant Valley for the actual transmission line work, again, this is a transmission corridor owned by National Grid. The land is owned by them. We are leasing the land. We'll have a long-term lease on the land for the new infrastructure that we're placing in. The old, you can see there, it's old lattice structures. They're over 80 years old. They've gone through their useful life, and now we're putting in new, modern, storm-resilient monopoles, which are the new structures that you see out there today. All of the new structures along the almost 6 miles in Pleasant Valley are all erected. All of the wire is strung on those structures, and we're in the process of removing all of the old structures, which will be completed by the end of this month. We will then go into restoration of the corridor, which we've started in the northern section of the project where you saw that intro slide with crops growing. We've been restoring the corridor as we've been going along. So we'll be moving into that phase here in Pleasant Valley from the summer throughout 2024. Another piece of the work that we've been doing here in Pleasant Valley is station work associated with the project. There are 2 stations that we're focused on for Pleasant Valley. One is the existing Pleasant Valley substation just right up the street here. That substation has kind of a split ownership. So you can see the station down in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. The square part of the substation is owned by Con Edison. That's the 345 kV portion of the station. And then the one that's more rectangular to the right of that, that's owned by Central Hudson. We've been doing work in the Con Edison side of the station, in the existing footprint of the station, adding new equipment to support the 345 kV line that will reside on the new structures that we've built. So that's one piece of it. The second piece, about 0.8 of a mile northwest from the Pleasant Valley substation, is a new station that we've been building, the Van Wagner Capacitor Bank Station. So I'll go into a little bit more detail about that. But you can see the poles in between the two stations. Those are the 91 and 92 lines. Those are existing transmission lines. Those poles are remaining, the yellow dots that you see on the map. We've just strung new wire on those poles, and that's been completed. So the Van Wagner station, which again is 0.8 of a mile from the Pleasant Valley station off of Van Wagner Road. This is being built on utility-owned property. This construction will be completed later this spring to put everything in service again by this summer. So you'll see us out there right now. There's folks out there at the station right now. The purpose of this station is to control the power flows and have for more efficient dispatching of resources, particularly during those high heat days when there's more strain on the system. So this process is ongoing. This is kind of the last big piece of the work that we're doing right now, other than removing the old structures and getting into the restoration work. But pretty soon you won't see a lot of us out there. Our crews are diminishing in size, so you'll see less of J.W. Didato, who's been the line crew out there. You'll see mostly folks focused at this station, and again, removing the old structures that are in the corridor and then working on restoration. Another piece of what we'll be doing besides the general restoration of the area is landscaping. So at a place like the Van Wagner station, we will be undertaking a landscaping assessment and determining landscaping that we can do around the station and for nearby residences. And that's something that we'll do at our other station sites and other particular areas around the corridor. So that's something that will start this summer and go into 2024. Again, restoration will continue into 2024. We have to monitor our restoration efforts for 2 years. That's a requirement of the conditions of the Public Service Commission. And then we'll continue with operations, maintenance, working on unauthorized access prevention plans, and other activities with our regular day-to-day team. But we're almost there. We really appreciate the patience of everyone. It's been 2 years, which is very rapid for construction of a project like this. And I'm proud to say it's been done safely and efficiently. We've surpassed over 1 million consecutive man hours of safe work thanks to the IBEW who's been building this project. So good, safe New York laborers doing good, safe New York work that will provide a lot of benefits for the long term. So we'll stay in touch with you, Supervisor, continuing to provide updates as we complete the construction, and we'll stay in touch as we continue operations and maintenance of the facilities once they're put in service. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Gully, thank you very much for keep getting the lights on and off. Appreciate it. Okay, so if you have any questions, we're going to let you guys go first. Anyone have anything? And if we can get that microphone. We'll do one at a time. We have, I think, Mr. Veters first.
Hello.
Hi.
A little history. Back when I was active about 45 years ago, there was a proposal for 765 kV lines. These towers that you have put up in town here, the new towers, can they be converted to 765 without any changes?
I don't know the answer to that.
The answer to that question is no.
They can't be converted.
They cannot. There was at one time, like you said, probably a number of years ago, there was some speculation about doing a 765,000 volt system like I've done down south in certain places. to provide for that eventuality, if you go up by Albany, you'll notice some big towers coming across the river where there are 3 wires rather than 2, and the towers horizontally, you'll notice the spacing's greater. Those were made to have the capability, like you're asking, to later on go up to a 765 if that happened. That was all abandoned in this area. So what we've done now is we've hooked onto those towers, which are energized at 345,000 volts, and brought into one of our new stations at Skodak Landing. So in answer to your question, these towers would never accommodate 765.
Thank you, because I was either on the town board or supervisor, I can't remember at that point, when the 765s. I traveled with Central Hudson to Canada, Toronto, I do believe. They had a whole setup of experimental, the effects of the 765 lines. And that is a very significant effect on anybody in the proximity.
It's a big line, and the kind of the world-class experimental facility now is located in Lenox, Massachusetts. And I've been up there, they use the 8 wires, and there's a lot of, it's a big product. We don't have that. The need, the reason for going to the higher voltage is less loss over long distances. If you're going across Canada or, one of them I did was 1,000 miles of line. For something like that, the cost savings of going with that higher voltage here is not necessary.
Okay, but there was an occasion next to the house to the east of your facility. I don't know whether it's yours or Niagara Mohawk or who, but the house immediately east, that fella had a pacemaker, and he was not able to stay in that house because of the electromagnetic field.
I'm not familiar with that. I mean, I am the EMF, but the various effects,
Yeah. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Why don't you just hand it to the next guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi.
You got it, you good?
It's on, okay, I gotta hear myself. The one question I have is, in going off Salt Point Turnpike onto Van Wagner Road, that substation that you're building there, no offense, it's an absolute monstrosity. And when I look at those poor people in that one house, when they look out, I don't think there's any way they can avoid, unless they look out the back window, if there's any way they can avoid that. How much landscaping can you do that will cover that, even remotely cover it?
We'll go in and do a whole study and all that. The towers that are in there now, as you probably know, are significant or smaller than the ones that have been there for the last 60 years out in front. Also, in this picture here, one of the things that is kind of important is these towers, you may have noticed, were shortened 40 feet last week.
Did not notice.
What we did to accommodate that and for safety reasons and also to allow us to operate cranes under that, there was an additional section, 40-foot section, between these two pieces. So over the last couple of weeks, we've actually picked up, there are 2 on this end, 2 on the far end. And these are the ones, by the way, out here, these big monsters, are the ones that have been there for 40-some years, long before that house was built.
All right.
And so what we did was we set these much higher to allow us to use cranes and equipment under there. And then when we got done, we simply picked this up, unbolt the pieces, and got rid of it. So it's less imposing if you look at it. I agree with you that it's big and it's an eyesore.
That's an understatement, sir.
It is.
Yeah,
Sit on
really.
Niagara Road and look at the one that's been there for 70 years. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
But to your question, so what we do is for each of the individual landowners that would be near equipment like this, we would go from their perspective, not from our perspective, from their perspective to see what we could do. We hire a local landscaper to work with us on this, to come up with the actual landscaping plan, which may include, I've been on other projects, we've put in awnings, we've put in fencing, we've put in trees. I mean, it's a whole host of things that you look at to try to accommodate on their property as well as on the site for where the equipment is constructed.
All right, because I know when I live 5 miles away, so it doesn't affect me personally, except that I go down Van Wagner Road many times.
Sure.
And when my wife and I drive down Van Wagner, she says she's ready to cry for the poor people in that house. And I don't know how anything can ever be resolved on that, but it's horrible, okay? And I'll say my piece and I'll shut up and go away. Thank you.
no,
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, though. That's good to know.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm Katrina.
Folks,
22 Coachman.
can you all just please say your name and where you live and all that? And if you could also stay by the microphone, we did this so that
Oh, yeah.
all
yeah.
this can go
Sorry about
out
that.
to the public.
So, first of all, I would like to say thank you for wrapping it up quickly because I have noticed that construction has been clean and quick. But I will echo that it is not attractive. And you can say that the posts there that were there were bigger, but you've put in a substation. So you've made a big difference. And I do not understand how any landscaping of any sort is going to hide that, but I'm curious to see what you come up with. In addition to that, you said you're doing restoration, but you bulldozed over a wetland. So there was a big wetland back there before you came in and put the substation in that was bulldozed over. So I'd like to know how you're going to restore that.
Okay, I don't think we bulldozed any wetland. Before we began construction, we had to come in, you may have seen the blue and yellow flags.
I did.
And I've been walking that, in fact, this road, I won't walk away from it, but that road that you see there, we put all the wood in.
Yeah, that
So-
used to be Phragmites, which is part of a wetland.
Yeah, right. And so we put that in so that we wouldn't get into the wetlands.
But no, because now there's gravel on top of it.
No, there is not.
There is, because I used to drive Van Wagner all the time, and I noticed how much Phragmites was back there because I used to work for an environmental organization. And Phragmites is actually invasive. However, it is in most wet areas, so it might not be what would be constituted as a protected wetland, but it definitely was a wetland. So and I'm not judging you here or blaming. All I'm saying is I would like to see some of that restored.
The state DEC is, and they're frequent visitors, as you well know. Every wetland had to be delineated in advance, and we had a buffer zone that we had to avoid it. Areas like this where, for instance, it's wet now. As you know, there's water. I went out and took pictures of the snakes yesterday. A lot of snakes in there. And so we put the wood through there, and you may have noticed if you see that we've also put cabling in it so it doesn't float away. It's sitting in water. And then when we go through that first picture you saw in the intro slide, kind of gives you an idea, but we're required to do all this restoration. We basically have to put everything back better than we found it. That includes environmental status, and if there's rock out there, I'll go look tomorrow. I think it's entirely wood, and we had to.
So where all the trucks are parked is on wood?
That's well out of the wetlands there.
Okay, so the Phragmites came within about 100 feet of the road before construction.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it, but I can find out, and we can get information.
And like I said, it might not have been something that was listed as wetland, but it was a wetland. And I'm not saying that you're not going to do it, but I would really like to see the nature that was there restored.
Yeah, because they're so picky.
Yeah, there are very stringent requirements when we go through a permitting process through the state called the Article 7, and that takes all of the state agencies that would have, it's under the Public Service Commission, but all of the state agencies, including DEC, participate in this. So we have to follow all of the rules and requirements as laid out in that Article 7 and all of those state agencies, whether it's DOT, DEC, whatever the
Yeah,
issue.
I'm sure you do have to follow all of that, but also just think that there are things that might not have been registered or designated as wetland that were actually wetland.
They actually, after they gave us, the permit has in it all 55 miles and all the wetlands. And they're shown, it's got overhead maps, and they're all delineated.
Yeah, I have one on my
Okay,
property
each
that's
one of
on
them,
the,
as you see, is numbered.
Yeah.
The DEC is out there frequently, and as you know, we have to have turtle monitors, snake monitors,
Yeah.
environmental monitors, bog turtle monitors, Indiana bat monitors.
and will there also be research done on the effects of the electromagnetic field?
Yes,
on
there
that?
has to be prior, New York State has strict standards on EMF. There is, in addition, we have to survey the center line of the right-of-way 5 miles each way, antique artifacts, Civil War artifacts. We have to do, pardon me, we have to do digs and look for things, find anything within 5 miles. Our environmental monitors have to walk before trucks to make sure that if we wander upon, say for example, we had an area where we put turtle fencing, exclusion fencing to keep turtles to control, to make sure they can go through their natural migration. Those things have to be checked daily, including the weekends, and DEC comes out and checks that too. And as you well know, I'm sure because your familiarity, there are significant fines. They can
Yes.
shut the project down for 90 days.
So how long would you expect restoration to take?
So restoration will go into 2024, and there's multiple elements of that. So the first step is, of course, removing all of the equipment, removing the matting that you see in this photograph, and then they go back in, and whatever was previously there in terms of natural growing species, habitat, or if it was a crop area, like we have in some of the other sections, we go back in and work with the appropriate organizations or individuals to restore it to that previously natural
So
condition.
will you seed wetland grasses and things like that when you do restoration?
Yes, I don't know for this particular area what it
Go to that
is,
opening
but
slide. I'll give you an idea too. Before we started anything, like when we first started coming to the city, a year or two before all this started, we also made it a point to get in contact with every farmer along the way. We waited till night when they were out of the field, and we went to the farm cooperative, and we went there, and we did surveys with every single agricultural property, and we asked them, what do you farm? When do you farm? When are you going to harvest? When do you plant? And what I wanted to do was make sure that I'd go in and tear something up 3 days before somebody was going to harvest something. So we then moved our schedule around and altered that schedule. We were given a difficult task in the beginning in that we were given basically $1 billion project with 12 days of float. We only had 12 days before we went into a big penalty, so we were able to move that back and improve the schedule. But we also wanted to be respectful of those people who are adjacent to our land and have been and will be. So we checked all that. We actually relocated a few towers to get them out of people's sight lines off the back of the house.
Except for on Van Wagner.
Pardon?
Except for on Van Wagner.
We did everything we could on Van Wagner, and we actually moved that station, as you may recall. I don't know if you were here when we did the initial ones, but the location moved several times, and part of it was we found an error on the Dutchess County plat maps and corrected that. But we tried to. The other choice, too, was land that we own, but it's that stuff on the other side of the existing substation. And the state, if we built there, we'd been in those people's not in their backyard, we've been on our property, but that was the other choice, which was not good.
I mean, it's done. You're not going to move it or tear
is
it down.
done, yes.
But it would be great to see restoration to the extent where not only the people who live across the street don't see it, but the public generally see it, and the Phragmites is replaced with some native wetland grass. That would be great.
And I do recall from past meetings with the board that we did say, when we were done construction, we would come back and talk to you about landscaping options for the station. And so we have that on our list. We're just getting all of our ducks in a row and completing the project, and we'll be back to talk about that.
And
Yep.
we live right here. I mean, I live right here, and we have a 2-year obligation with the state. We also, there are some elements, there's 873 conditions we have to comply with. And some of those have to do with what percentage is returned. We've got 2 years that we have to monitor and report on a periodic basis to the state. But as we've committed to in the past and as we've followed through, anytime there are any questions now or after we're done, please get a hold of Supervisor Delvecchio. We're happy to come back. You're a 20-minute drive from me from home. And I live here. Central Hudson built a line through my front yard. I'm about as thrilled at it as you guys probably are. This happened to be where all the Niagara Mohawk stuff comes from. Everybody right now, there's a big push to sustainable energy. Well, sustainable energy in New York lives up by Buffalo. That's where the sun and the wind happens. But unfortunately, Buffalo doesn't have much of a load. It's got to get down here. And that old line, by the way, we've talked about this before, is Shannon mentioned, like 70, it's 91 years old. All the parts and pieces we're taking down are stamped 1931.
And I'm not denying that we need to do this.
To balance it.
We'll be back. We'll provide more information, and we've committed to working with the town on the landscaping.
Yeah, and Supervisor Delvecchio's got my business card too. And if somebody wants to go out and look around sometime, tour, we take people on tours all the time, and we're really, really proud of our. I've been doing it for 57 years. I'm third generation of this, and I also am a professor at Columbia University. But I keep leaving there and coming up to do this stuff. I did the other one. We're your neighbors, and I appreciate, all the concerns. And the way into that comes sometimes too is I asked one guy on the last project, he built his house under the line. The line didn't come to him; he came to the line, and so it's a little bit. But this, we do have obligations to do all the restoration, to return things to as good or better condition, and then with the landscaping, we'll do everything we can. You may notice if you drive by there too, that the fence looks a little unusual. What we have done from kind of a safety and security standpoint, there's a big push on these things. You've heard just recently about all the attacks on substations and stuff. The fence out here we've used, you'll notice this black mesh along there. It's a very substantial, but it's non-conductive too. Somebody had asked about EMF, and so we've taken a lot of measures there to mitigate and control all that kind of stuff.
We have, what,
Hi. Do I have to say it?
state your name, yep.
Valerie Hovasapian, Robinson Road, Salt Point. I live right around the corner from Ward. So in the restoration, I understand you're going to take down the matting that's in the picture. What about any roads that were built? Like there's some that were banked and there's gravel, like particularly on Ward Road on the upper side of the road. Is that going to be restored?
The entrance where all the construction activity has been, where all the cars are parked and things now, up by there's some construction trailers, that will all come out. The permanent roadway will be kind of that curve thing that goes down to, there's only one gate. Under the security provisions, there's one gate that's down the corner. It's a new one. It's been installed in the last several days.
Okay, so there were new roads. So those, anything that looks like a road is staying. The matting is going.
The matting, we had 100,000 mats in here, and yes, they're all going to another project. They'll all be removed. those areas, like if you saw that first picture, 30 days, yeah, this is.
So
this was
this
all
had the
one road
matting,
through here.
this had the matting, it gets removed, and it gets restored to whatever the pre-existing condition was, so in this case, crops.
I understand that. I'm talking about, it looked like they built some gravel roads and some of the access, some of the entry points, like on Netherwood, on Ward.
That all goes away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, that will look, well, obviously there aren't crops in there, but we've got some other pictures too. It's really amazing. Those mats, it used to be what we did was we drove in with trucks, but it rutted. It took about 7 years for things to actually come back to full what they were. The mats are interesting because they spread the pressure, the weight
It
on
distributes
the ground. We
the
took
weight.
those mats up, and literally 30 days later, you can't tell anybody's ever been there. And so, yeah, but all the stuff on Ward Road, Netherwood, West, every place we cross, we put temporary entrances in there now, and so that will all go away and be restored. So,
Hi, Phil Apicino, Ravine Road. I have a couple of quick questions.
Yeah.
You said this is a distribution center that regulates the electricity as needed.
yes.
Will that be done remotely, or will there be a crew here on site?
This will be an unstaffed station.
It's remote.
Unstaffed?
Yeah, there is in this, and it sits back in the diagonally opposite corner. There is a control building, an enclosure, that has in it all the relays, the protection. We're obviously set up in the event of a total blackout. We have every system in this has an A and a B side to it. We have a complete redundant system. And if you went into that building, the two big rows of all the flashing light looks like mission control. The only thing connecting those two sides is fiber optic. There's no electrical connection.
Well, how about security?
Security, we now fall under the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, what's called SIP 13. And that prescribes all of the security provisions that have to be made. We can't energize anything until that's met. There are audits that are done. And as I mentioned earlier, it's recently received an awful lot of attention. But yeah, and we'll have to have thermal imaging, cameras, motion
There's security
detection.
systems, and there's a
So
lot of
that's gonna be done
coordination.
remotely also? You're
Yeah.
not gonna have security crews?
No.
Okay, one
There
last-
won't be anybody physically there.
One last question. What kind of lighting are you going to have on this? Is the light output going to affect the residents at all?
Light pollution is they're very, very sensitive of. What we have is two types of lighting there. The ones that were installed just this last week are what are called up-down lights, and they're the types that have, you've probably seen them before, but it's got globes, an opaque globe on the bottom and one on the top.
Well, I think his question,
yeah.
you're probably wondering, are lights going to be on all the time at night?
No.
No, it's a dark facility unless it's emergency conditions or operations and
Yeah,
maintenance.
yeah, and we have those lights that we can light the equipment, and then they're also installing some floodlights in the event of an emergency. We have to come in and work on energized lights.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, they won't be on at night. That would be tough to landscape against.
Any board members have any questions?
Yeah, thanks for coming tonight. Just curious I mean, you guys are investing a whole bunch all over the state. Just here in Pleasant Valley, I mean, is this a multi-million-dollar project? Are we talking billions of dollars?
So it's a $600 million project in total.
Okay.
For Pleasant Valley, I don't know exactly what the asset value is. It's something we could get.
Okay.
I know where your question's going, I think.
No, I was just curious with like
Well, was the what I was going to ask.
security and like he was just talking about security. You're installing all this stuff. So I was just curious how much that was. From your slide, you're doing the Van Wagner transfer station, and you're doing upgrades at the substation, basically across the road.
Yes.
Okay.
And then about 6 miles of new line work,
Okay.
new structures and conductor.
Our brand new line came into we moved 2 of the lines in the Con Ed station over one position. We vacated, there are 5 there. We vacated the third, moved it to the second. Our brand new line comes into that place. And then the 2 lines that you see there, which have been there for 40 years, came in, they're National Grid lines. They came into bays 4 and 5. So what we've had to do is some new switches, some new apparatus and stuff like that. And
Okay.
we went through and did some upgrades in a bay in the Con Ed station.
I'll echo some of the residents' concerns about the landscaping. I mean, I don't think any landscaping study or whatnot is going to cover up that. It's really sad. I actually saw somebody that I'm friends on Facebook has a daughter who plays softball here in town, and they were playing out at West Road, and they posted a picture of their daughter opening day at softball, and in the background, all you saw was your guys' big monstrous thing.
Yeah.
So I really
It's over the school parking lot.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I took all the pictures there before. we
yeah,
saw it.
it's ugly. It's basically destroyed that whole area, and you can plant trees or whatever. But couple questions about now that we've established that you guys were doing the work across the street here. About a year ago, you came here and you gave us an update because there was concerns about white bags filled with dirt. I just want to refresh your guys' memories. Back on August 8th, 2022, I actually wrote an email to Shannon, basically because I got the copy of the DEC officer's report. And when you came here to the town board last time, you stated to us that the DEC did a test on that fill that was stored in the bags, and that it came back that it wasn't contaminated. And I think there was actually discussion between us and you guys about if we got the DEC report and the test results first, or you guys got it first, we'd swap it. So I got the DEC report, and the officer is very clear on putting dates and times and conversations that the officer had. And basically, long story short, is that officer basically contacted Central Hudson and then was directed to contact an engineering company called Burns and McDonald, which in later emails, Shannon, you confirmed was the engineer for your project. And Burns and McDonald, basically, the officer did have concerns that the fill was contaminated, but Burns and McDonald, your engineer, stated that you guys tested it and it was okay. So then I got that information, which was opposite of what we talked about at the last meeting you guys were at, and I wrote a very nice email basically looking for clarification. I asked if Burns & McDonald was your engineering company. I asked if the engineering company did complete a test like they stated to DEC and what they told the officer, and I also asked if we could receive as a board those test results. You responded to my email, and you did confirm that that isn't your engineering company and that you'd have to get back to me. And then about 7 days later, I got an email that said, "Good afternoon, please accept this follow-up from your inquiry and requests. Consolidated Edison, Con Ed, is the property owner of the Pleasant Valley Substation, not New York Transco. For this reason, your request should be directed to Con Ed. Please feel free to contact me with any questions about the New York Energy Solution Project. Thank you." So my question for you, when you were here last time, you told the town and the residents that you had DEC test the fill that was in the bags, that the DEC came back and said it wasn't contaminated. I got the DEC report and saw that that was not the case, and that your engineering company told DEC that they're the ones that did the test. And when I questioned you about it, you then all of a sudden decided to tell all of us that you had nothing to do with the dirt in the bags. So I understand that you're here telling us that you're going to restore the wetlands. You're here telling us that you're going to take up the roads. How are you going to instill confidence in this board, the residents, and the entire town that you actually mean what you're saying? Because these are all the facts. Unless you're telling me that the DEC
There are 3 inaccuracies in there that we need to correct before we
Okay.
go much further.
Yeah, please.
Okay, please. Con Ed does the testing. Their chem lab down in Building 31 of that story does it. It's their property. You're familiar with the cradle to grave, the CERCLA stuff. It's their soils, they have to test it.
So before you move on to the next
Okay.
point, so at the last meeting,
So
why
can-
was it represented to us that the DEC and that
No,
we were
no,
waiting
No,
on?
we said we'd
DEC.
get the DEC report, which we did actually provide. We had to actually foil to get the
Yeah,
report.
we had to go
And
through
we,
legal counsel.
and we did get it, and we did pass it along to the town, and that was the report from the DEC officer that did the investigation back in May of 2022.
And the DEC, to the best of my knowledge, never said that they tested it or they decided. All they did was come out, look, and notify us a day or two later that they closed their investigation. Pretty unusual if they saw anything suspicious.
So Burns and McDonald, your engineering company, told the DEC that they tested it and it came back okay.
I suspect that that probably is more like Burns and McDonald, who's on the site of running it, told them that it had been tested, because we can't test other people's soil. I can't come in your yard and take a sample. Con Ed owns the property.
But you're working with Con Ed, obviously, because you're working on their property, so you're telling us that you can't work with the person that you're working with and get us a copy of that test?
Well, as we stated, it is Con Edison's property. It would be under the purview of their determination of what to share about that property, other than the high-level details that we've provided about. We're building at that particular site. We've added a new bay. We're pulling in the wires. But anything beyond that, you'd have to ask them, which is exactly what I had stated. And I think I gave you a contact person there. If I didn't, I can get you one.
Yeah, we can do that.
I just was baffled that the community and the town wanted to discuss. The only reason we asked was because of the fill, and the folks were concerned about it being contaminated. And if it was something that Con Edison was responsible for, then I don't understand why you guys came to represent and answer questions on the bag of fill that you have no jurisdiction over.
We were asked about the construction means and method because the local furor at that time was that white bags are an indices of hazardous waste. Now, I went 3 miles away to a Dutchess County bridge project being built by Dutchess County, and what do I find? 150 white bags. The white bags they're called a super sack, and it's made just to contain stuff and carry it away. But Con Ed chemical lab has to test anything that comes out of the ground over there, and they won't give it to us. We, as you know, because we gave it to you guys, we had to go through legal counsel to get anything. And the DEC, and I was surprised, I think that they would have at least investigated or asked more, but the guy came, he asked his questions, did his investigation, and they closed the thing immediately.
So do you own the property where the Van Wagner substation is?
No.
No, we do not.
Okay, so you're still not responsible for any of the DEC stuff on that land then?
We're responsible for the restoration of the project once we've completed construction.
Yeah, and anything that up
So-
there,
so
if there was any contamination.
Let's say we have concerns after you do your restoration, and I write you an email and I say, hey, the residents have concerns because you didn't put the wetland back the way it is. My question to you is, am I going to get a response just like this that, hey, it's not our property, go to
That's
Con Ed?
my job. That's what I do. We do the wetlands. We're committed. There are 873 that came out of the court. It's a legal proceeding. It's part of the Article 7. And by the way, you guys participated in it. Your attorney did. We have what's called the joint settlement agreement. Every party involved has a seat at the table. Those who are the smaller groups, some of the environmental stuff, we fund their expert witnesses. We fund their research. We have to put in an escrow fund to allow people to have access.
I understand all that.
I think the larger question is, are we compliant with rules and regulations that are determined by New York state law or otherwise? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
I understand that. The bigger question here is, I still don't understand why the town and the residents had issues and concerns about the fill being contaminated, why you would come here and represent that you were the folks that we could ask those questions to, and then when we had more questions, it's then directed to another company.
No.
And
You called us and asked us here. We didn't represent that we were the ones and call you and say, hey, we can answer
And we
this
did
question.
say that we would get the DEC report, that we didn't have it and that we would get it, which we did. And then we followed up to get the correct information about any testing, which we don't do, but we provided who does do it.
But on that day, you reassured us that that was not contaminated soil. All I'm saying is that we had a whole discussion as a board after these emails went back and forth. And I'll tell you right now is what you represented here at that last meeting and what we were under the assumption of, we felt comfortable after that last meeting until we read this report and we understood the background of what was actually going on, because we all felt that you guys did the testing and you were here to reassure us in the community that it didn't have any contaminants in it. And then to ask for more information to be just, oh, well, it's not our property, so you have to go to Con Ed. It just didn't sit well. So I hope going forward that, like the D's, I get that you're now saying that you're in charge of the wetlands and whatnot, but I don't know. I just,
I would encourage you to contact Con Ed. Get a hold of McKinley. We provided the contact information because I'm retired from Con Ed and I know what it's like to get that. But Con Ed came out periodically. They have to do it whenever there's excavation, and they tested the soil. And they have the results at their chem lab, and that's...
And exactly what you're saying now is what should have been told to us a year ago, is my point.
I think that's what we told you then. And
I went back and watched the video to make sure we were all on the same page.
Oh, okay.
And it was made clear to us that the DEC tested it. It doesn't matter, we'll move forward, but I'm just saying it's tough for me to...
DEC never tested anything. They were called, DEC was called by somebody and asked to come out and look. They did, and what they represented to us was they just immediately went back and closed their case, which I suspect that if they had any...
They closed their case because your engineer told them that it wasn't contaminated and that they tested it. But again, we can go back and forth about it.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, going forward, I have some concerns about the future of what I will be happy in 2024 when you do exactly what you promised.
But it's not characteristic of the DEC to say, oh, somebody told us it's okay, so we're, we had a small thing, small enough that it was $100 fine here a while back, and they had 5 people out there all weekend. I mean, DEC is generally pretty thorough. And I find it just, the idea that somebody on the site would tell them it's okay and they just go away and close the case isn't the way they do business generally.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board?
Yeah. I think everybody in this room knows how much I love this project. It brings my definition of dislike to a whole new level, whole new definition. You talk regulations, but we have never had a say in any of this. You say that you aren't in federal wetlands. Katrina is absolutely 100% right, okay? This is the property you're on, here's your wetlands. Follows it all the way to, the substation we already have. It is, you have never had to come before this town for anything, including, I wish the whole site looked as good as it does on that screen with all the green and the purple and the red and all the rest of the happy crap, okay, because it does not. You put a driveway in over there on Van Wagner Road that I can't comprehend why any engineer would not have come in where there was already a roadway.
That's the road.
There was already a roadway right here. Why did they put it right in front of this poor woman's house? Why did they not come in here, go along here, and down into where they needed to go? I was there. I've seen this whole thing. I'm not just talking out my right ear. And And then that way, all of this growth here would have stayed in place. And this poor woman wouldn't open up her blinds in her picture window out her living room every morning and see the monstrosity that is out there right now. What it has done to our town is pathetic. I'm sorry. And I personally want to see Burns and McDonald. I want to see with these poor people that own up here, Shelley Mackey and the rest of them, I want them to sit down with them, with me, and go over a complete landscape project. Because I'll tell you what, I don't want to see seedlings.
No, and we have talked with Shelley and Bob, and Kay, and we've explained that it will be mature landscaping. We've never said seedlings.
Okay, I'm sorry, at this point, I don't believe anything. I still can't even comprehend why you did the things the way you did to begin with. I don't know what engineer in their right mind would have done that with the roadway. And you've never even had to ask our town highway super or any of our planning or anybody else for any kind of permission for anything. You just went and made it right on a really bad turn. Then you come in off of Van Wagner Road from Salt Point Turnpike and you pull in there and you have to pull into this roadway and you're right on a corner. It's amazing to me that no one's come around that corner and gotten killed. So, yes, I have big doubts here where this is all. But I really want to be able to see this myself. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Go ahead.
I mean, I've got nothing to say, nothing to add other than the fact that at the last time you guys were here, as per the minutes, you did tell us that the DEC tested and all was fine. So, I mean, I share everybody's, it's an atrocity what happened on Van Wagner Road. It's disgusting. It's disgusting that we have to look at these things in our town. It's a real good story to have somebody not want to live in this town, is what Transco has done to this town. So honestly, I have nothing that's nice to say, so I'm just not going to say anything at all.
Well, thank you very much for coming in. If we'd like to do a follow-up, I think that would be wise. Maybe
So
take some of these concerns
yes, and we'll follow up on the completion once we have everything complete, and then give you some more details about the restoration and the landscaping elements.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'll get more information too. We'll look into the wetlands and stuff like that too, because we owe you guys some answers.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay. Where are we? I forgot where we are. This is today, right? Okay. Public comment. Oh. So at this time, I'd like to open up the meeting for public comment on agenda items only. And
Second.
Without, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. On agenda items only. And if we can not beat a dead horse, anything that's already spoken of, or anyone? We're going to go back over this way, Katrina. Thank you.
Katrina Maloney, 22 Coachman. So the
Just
agenda.
give it 2 seconds so
Sure.
that we give you full attention. We're just making one little adjustment. Thank you.
Just wanted to confirm that the new building is on the agenda.
Yes.
Okay. I just had a comment about when you use the downstairs to go into where we would have our town meetings, you would access that from the front door. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's where you would walk through
Correct.
all of the, okay. And then you would turn right and go into those buildings?
Yes.
I mean, go into that room, okay. And then storage under the stairs or no?
You can't do that for fire, right?
Yeah.
Correct. There's no storage underneath the stairs. It's not allowed in commercial building code.
And then a question which I'm sure is sort of a redundant question, but solar, any lead materials being used. I know that's going to jack up the price, but I think when you have some energy efficiency, you save money. So you said the walls are 4 inches. That's pretty.
CMU block and 4 inches.
Oh, okay, all right.
8 inches then 4 inches.
Okay, so what would the R value be on the walls?
I would have to check. Oh, it'd be high. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I was told it in that building code.
Meeting building code is pretty low, actually. So I would hope we would go above and beyond just meeting the building code and bring that R value up just a little bit. You can do that with some thicker wall board. And also for the ceiling too. If you're going to go with the metal roof, it would be really great to have a higher R value in the ceiling because it will reduce the sound when it rains, number one. And you as an engineer know that that's going to be a major energy loss if we don't increase that above what's expected for code, even just by a little bit. So do we have any information on what types of materials will be used for this renovation? Is it standard material?
I'm not sure, but I can tell you that the Climate Smart Committee in Pleasant Valley, that is very much for what you're talking about, would like to give advice to us as to some of the things that we can do for energy efficiency.
That's great. I mean, energy efficient materials used to be very expensive in comparison to standard, but that's not necessarily so anymore since everything is expensive. So it might just increase.
And it's not necessarily true that it's more expensive. Some of it isn't.
Yeah, some of
So
it's
it
not.
actually-
That's
it
true.
actually
Some of
should
it's
come down.
not.
So it's all being taken into consideration.
That'd be great. Okay, thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Phil Apicino, Ravine Road. I had a question on the R value of the exterior walls. You said they're block and brick back up, and then 4 inches. I think I read one report with fiberglass insulation in the 4 inch. Okay, now you don't have block and brick in the front of the building, right? On those walls or the side walls. So how is the R value on, say, the front of the building?
So the construction of the building is brick, then CMU block, and then interior wall. So and that's on the front and the back.
But the front, the second floor, isn't that siding?
There's siding only along the ends of the building.
And what would the R value requirement be, R30?
I would have to check. Yeah.
My question is, have you considered foam insulation to bring it up to code? Energy code?
We did not include that in the cost, or include that in the cost estimate that I'm aware of.
So we're not 100% sure we're meeting any New York energy codes?
Phil, could you just stay closer to the mic?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So we're not sure we're meeting New York State energy codes?
We are meeting New York State energy codes, but you're asking, are we considering greater than New York State energy code, and we had not considered
No.
that.
Okay, and then one last question. Is this office space considered A, B, or C class when you're finished?
My architect did not come tonight.
Okay.
I'm
All
a
right.
civil engineer, sorry.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Agenda items only. Must be a lot of Bruin fans here, right?
Gary Veter, South Point Turnpike. On the building, and then I brought it up at last meeting. We have money now that can be taken away by the state. So particularly the COVID money, which is going to run out really quick. Can you use that for solar energy? That's number one question.
Yep. Yes, it can be.
Well, we better start spending it or else we aren't going to have it. That's number one. The other item on the agenda is this future local law regarding cannabis.
We took that off the agenda for tonight.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, that's off the agenda. We made that adjustment in the beginning of the meeting. I don't know if you
If
heard
you
it.
need help digging a hole to put that law, I will help dig that hole. I don't understand Hudson Valley Leisure Services Association.
So that's a fellowship. I've actually, I'm going to let Mary handle that because she's going to go to it.
It's something that Nikki Santos, our Assistant Recreation Director, applied for. It's a scholarship, fellowship type of thing that was funded through the Hudson Valley Leisure Services Association. So she got this wonderful fellowship that allowed her to go to the Parks and Recs Management Conference just recently at no charge because she had gotten this, as far as the classes are concerned, I mean. And it also gave her a membership for free into this. And it's extremely helpful to our recreation department to be
Okay.
able to have this.
I just didn't
She
understand.
she did a wonderful job. She went right off the ground running with all of this stuff.
Okay, guess that's it. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Dan Deegan, Oxford Road. Mike, nice job. Everybody up here asking the questions. Transco got out of here quick, huh? Ran like a 2:5:40 getting out of this building. I don't know how this works, but hearing how that went, first of all, this room feels united. Everybody was nodding for the same reason. That feels pretty good. I think they poked the bear. So I heard one number, 600 million. Is that the number? Okay. There was another follow-up question I thought was coming, but maybe we hold that until we want to play that. How does this work with utilities? And this isn't a unique idea. I saw somebody else bring this up a couple of weeks ago. What's up with assessment? They got all, do they pay tax? Like, how does that work first?
They do. They'll pay.
Okay.
They pay taxes. What they're doing is, and I asked this question earlier. They answered. I thought someone else would ask that question as well because it has been asked to the board on several different occasions.
Yeah.
Do we reassess them? And they apparently, it's an upgrade, and they automatically are pre-reassessed. So whatever their upgrades are, it's already set in stone and goes from there, long before we even sat here.
That's Transco?
Yeah.
What about Central Hudson, National Grid, and Con Ed?
That's a different company altogether, so.
I think there's 4
Yep.
assessments that
Each
should
one
happen.
of them. Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Wow. Good. It's nice that we're all on the same team for something.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Not seeing any more, I move we close the meeting to the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
New business discussion. You should have a copy. I got a message from our building and zoning department that a lot of these escrow fees are running short because everything else has been raised. So when someone starts a project, they are running out quicker than they were originally from the original initial assessment of what the project is. And then it's difficult to go and collect it afterwards or midway through again. So it's probably wise we upgrade these
Yeah.
fees. So this is just a sheet. You might take a look at some of this breakdown and maybe ask any questions you need from the staff. They pretty much have a good handle on what's happening. So a lot of projects are not making it all the way with their initial escrow. So, and it's difficult to go after it after the project, or if the project's denied halfway through, then people are not willing to take care of the remaining bills. So.
Can I ask Emily a quick question? I know we had originally discussed some of the issue leading to projects being signed off and then bills still being due was the legal service and engineering service, the bills coming in months and months later after a sign permit was issued. I can't remember what the conversation was or what we could do, but I'm for this if we can set some kind of rule that if you don't have your bills in within 60 days or whatever, because, we were getting bills from folks like 6-7 months after a sign was done, Is there anything we can do and legally?
Statute of limitations on that?
I have to tell you, not to interrupt you, but I already did this with both firms. I did it with the attorneys and I did it with the engineers. And I told them that they had to have it in by the 15th day of the following month. So if that's not working, then you're going to have to take over.
What we should do is put it in their contracts next year. I think that's the right way to handle it. But yeah, I'm glad you had that conversation. I hope it's taking effect.
Well, no, actually, I followed up, and it's, we've already had discussions with exactly the same with everybody, and we've stepped it up even more. They've been all told that they have to get those bills in sooner, and I think they're a little better right now. There's still one or two that are dragging, but not as bad as it was, so. But that's still neither here on this particular piece. This is different. This is someone comes in with a project, they're told to pay X amount, and the legal fees and the engineering fees eat it all up. And then if the project is canceled, well, then they say, we're done, we don't have to pay anymore, and it's not necessarily the truth, so.
Yeah, so that's why they're kind of connected, because.
In a way.
Well, what we were having issues with is that bills weren't coming in until 6 months after the project. So I'm fine raising these, but we need to address that issue.
Yeah.
And
it
this
was
issue at the
literally
same
6
time,
months.
because they're
Yes.
both connected.
Yep, I agree.
And just to point out that when you raise these amounts, if the full amount is not used,
Right.
you know, the way the escrow works is the applicant gets it back. So do you want a resolution to, I think this would be amendment to the fee schedule to?
I think we should, we
Yeah.
should definitely do that, and we'll continue to press the companies to get their bills in on time, but duly noted that the contracts will have to be
Next year, yeah.
changed a little bit in the future. 12B, bids received, Pleasant Valley, this is an oversight on my part, I guess, so I guess what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask to keep the RFP open, correct, Mary Beth, and go for good faith contacts and see if we can't get more bids and stuff on those things, so. 12C, Hudson Valley Leisure Association Fellowship for Nikki Santos, which we just kind of touched upon. Do I read this whole thing?
It's up to you.
I mean, it's, want to express our thanks and appreciation. This is from Sandra Coe. I want to express my thanks and appreciation for allowing Nicole Santos and myself to attend the New York State Recreation and Park Society Conference in Monticello this past week. This educational event provided an experimental offering of relevant programs. The keynote speakers and each individual seminar was packed with invaluable application information. Most of all, we were able to network with other professionals from various New York State municipalities, exchanging ideas and suggestions. We are now able to continue this dialogue with each other for further insight and brainstorming during the upcoming year. We also want to thank the Hudson Valley Leisure Services Association for awarding Nicole their Charles Cunnington Fellowship Award. Congratulations. This award covered the cost and to attend the conference seminars of $350, and it also paid for Nicole's yearly membership to New York State Recreation and Park Society of $138. We are hoping to be able to attend next year's conference. Thank you again, Sandra Coe. Yay. Okay, that brings us to new business resolutions. Town Board Resolution 500, 2023, amending the 2023 general fund budget.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then Town Board Resolution 501, 2022, amending the 2022 general fund budget.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That brings us to old business discussion. We already took away the cannabis thing, creating zoning administrative job. Oh, so what we have to do basically is, we have to put the zoning administrative job on Indeed. We didn't really get much of a response at all from the way we went about it. So I think that's probably the prudent thing to do. Yes, Mike?
Do you need a
I'll make a motion.
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we added 14C, the ARPA money.
So, Mary and I were talking because we're in the committee for the ARPA funds, and we got a lovely email from Denise from RBT. So we talked, we want to, at next town board meeting, have in essence, a public hearing. Allow the public to come out and tell us what they want us to spend the ARPA funds on. We'll add to the website what the guidelines are, because there are some guidelines in the sense that the simple guidelines are, according to this, we can either use it for COVID-19 expenditures, we can premium pay for essential workers, or investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. There is some road paving that we can do in there as well, but I'll post a fact sheet of what we can spend the money on. That way, at next board meeting, people can, because we have to satisfy a public comment portion, right? We have to get input from the residents, so this might be the easiest way. That way, then afterwards, we can kind of consolidate what we had already earmarked funds for, what we know are problem areas in the town, and what the public wants to spend the funds on.
Sounds good to me. Let's move.
We also talked, Councilman Mazzella and myself, about we assigned some of the unassigned fund balance to stuff. There's things that we did that for that we might want to rethink of.
Absolutely.
If we're going to do it soon, unassign it and just use ARPA funds.
Yep.
Right.
So within the next couple of years, we use it and we don't lose it.
So technically, in some of those things, we did not assign that.
No,
Right.
We just,
money.
yeah, no, I know, I know.
Identified some of the,
No, I get it.
That's all.
But if
And it might not be a bad idea to add those if we can use them.
Well, the way I see it is ARPA gives a strict structure for their money. The other funds are less restrictive, so, you know.
Correct. So yes,
So yeah, next, so I'll add it to the agenda in our.
It's already been done according to Granicus, correct? All right, old business resolutions, there are none. Items for special consideration, there are none. Public comment, new business, one time only, anyone, anything new?
So moved. I'll open it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone? New business? Nothing old that we're beating to death here already?
No, just ARPA.
Yep, come on.
John Dunn, Netherwood Road. Shortly before coming to the meeting tonight, I was listening to the news, and contrary to what the government has been saying, the president now has agreed to sit down and discuss the budget. And part of the speaker's budget, of course, was to claw back the unused COVID funds, ARPA funds, okay? So consequently, I can't impress upon you enough, please, we have to get going on this, otherwise we're giving back free money. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, sorry, okay.
Dan Deegan, Oxford Road. Playgrounds, parks, do they count? You didn't say it. I assume they do.
Well,
right?
there's a laundry, I'm gonna post it, but yes.
Yeah, so we'll have that list posted, correct?
Yeah.
Anyone else?